The Free State Police are investigating the assault of two black teenagers by white men at the Marcel Sport Resort outside Bloemfontein on Christmas Day. After video was shared online by Dumi Frost on Twitter, started to circulate across social media platforms in what's been described as a racist attack. Let's speak now to the legal representative of the victims of this alleged attack in the Free State. We're joined by Zola Majavu. Mr. Majavu, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time and patience tonight. So we've all seen this video circulating online. What is your course of action going forward?
Good evening, Thembekile, and good evening to your viewers, and belated Merry Christmas, even though there's nothing merry for the clients I represent. I can confirm that I hold instructions on behalf of the family of the two black sons. Primarily, my mandate is to do a watching brief, which means that I must make sure that the investigation is not bungled. It is done in accordance with the prescripts of the law and the standing orders that govern how police conduct such investigations to make sure that no foul play happens. My clients are fully appreciative of the fact that not all white African males are racist, and they therefore do not paint them with the same brush. But mine is to make sure that the rights of the victims and those of the family are not trampled upon. And we are also not ruling out the possibility of a legal suit.
Do they believe, though, that their children were attacked yesterday precisely because they are black and the attackers white?
It's without a shadow of doubt. I spoke to the parents who informed me that initially the children came to where they were resting to ask them for their intervention because some white bullies were not allowing them to utilize the pool simply because they are black. They then went and engaged with the powers that be as well as the management of the resort. And they were assured that the issue had become resolved and it was brought down to a minor misunderstanding. So the parents left. No sooner had they left the scene than they were informed by the children that actually the situation had become escalated. It got physical, and one of them was physically dragged into the pool in a clear attempt for all to see that the perpetrator tried to drown this particular young black person. So the question of race is undoubtedly at the core of how this particular unsavory incident happened. So there's no doubt that they were attacked, ill-treated simply because they were black in a place that those who harbor under this misillusion that there are still no-go areas in this country post-democracy thought it was an exclusively a preserve for white merry-goers.
How are the boys doing now?
Traumatized, but I am assembling a team of volunteers from various disciplines, and they are getting counseling and the necessary, treatment. These boys were born post-democracy, so they don't understand what you and I might have gone through. So this gave us a huge shock. And for big-bellied guys to manhandle young children in the manner that they did with these ones, it's a sad day. Of course, we accept that those perpetrators, according to the law, remain innocent until convicted by a court of law, if that conviction may follow. But I think cameras and the photographs do not lie. We saw what we saw, and I have advised my clients to maintain a disciplined silence in spite of the outpouring of public outrage, because we don't want to imperil the very investigation and the unfolding rule of law just because we get emotional about it. Right. It's bad enough as it is, but we are sure that the law will take its full course.
Just as a side note, you said you're going to assemble a team of volunteers to help the boys deal with some of the other aspects, i.e. trauma that comes from such an assault. At this stage, are you volunteering your services?
As a lawyer, yes, and I expect no fee at all. By the way, I have assisted people in similar situations previously for no fee. I detest injustice. So there's no financial benefit for me to derive. And other people, other professionals have also said, look, Chief, we are prepared to assist, not because we are racializing this thing, but we're trying to give support where it is needed most. The unfortunate part is this unfortunate incident happens on a day when everybody is supposed to be having fun or expected to have fun after COVID had deprived all of us of an opportunity to mix. And I know for a fact that there are a handful of people, white Afrikaners in Bloemfontein, who seem to think that they are above the law. And they are in for a huge, huge rude reawakening in accordance with the legal principles of this country.
Just on the case itself, you referenced the moment that we see in the video where one of the white men is seen basically pulling one of the boys underwater. We're not showing an unblurred version of the video because we're protecting the identity of these minors. But when you look at the police statement, they refer to a case of common assault. And there's been an argument made by some that, in fact, there may be grounds to pursue an attempted murder investigation or charge. Would you agree with that?
Let me put it to you this way. At this stage, it's still early days, and we do not want to preempt the decision by the public prosecutor. It's not the police's call to classify offenses. So I couldn't care less what the police put out there in their statement. There's a rule of law in this country. All they have to do is to investigate the incident, gather all the necessary statements and evidence, and put it before a public prosecutor, who is an independently and suitably trained legal professional. And that prosecutor would, having read the docket objectively, decide what charges to prefer. So I do not want us to try and get hyped up by a statement issued by the police, which I have not seen. And assuming that such a statement is out there, I think it's completely out of order because it is not their call. Where someone's life is attempted to be taken, it can never be brought down to common assault. It is attempted murder, period. But I do not want to preempt what the prosecutor's decision may be, out of respect for them and out of respect for the process. But common assault would be an insult and a slap on the victim's face. And
your involvement at this stage, of course, is with that watch brief where you're going to make sure, essentially, you'll keep an eye to ensure that the case is not bungled, the investigation itself. Explain in the layest of terms what the parameters you'll be operating under actually are. How much will you be able to monitor and be involved, not involved, but basically watch the investigation?
It is not a passive watch. It is to watch, to also independently gather evidence or any evidential material, which we will then pass on to the police and to the prosecution authorities to enable them to make their own decisions independently and to give them whatever support. But most importantly, my role is also to make sure that the rights of the victims and their families are not trampled on a secondary or even a tertiary basis, because they do not understand how the law operates. Sometimes they may be emotional about it and accuse the police and the law enforcement agencies unfairly so. So my role is to be a buffer between the victim's family and the law enforcement agencies and ultimately the prosecution authorities to make sure that ultimately the law prevails. Obviously, for those who are personally affected, they just want to see justice done. But sometimes the expectation of what justice form might take, it may not necessarily be, in kilter with how our legal system operates. So because I'm legally trained, I'm able to convey the necessary information on either side and also make sure that the investigation is not bungled. And there is no assumption, by the way, that the investigation will be bungled. But I think it's a situation that has become emotive, and I thought that professionals must step in and do what professionals do, dispassionately and in a manner that does not seek to escalate, because sometimes people become reckless and make comments that may even undermine the very investigation. And I think it is unfair at this stage to suggest that the police may mess it up. There is no reason to think so. But if there was a temptation to do so, I'm there to make sure that that does not happen and it is nipped right in the bud. Of course, we do not rule out the possibility of a legal suit against the perpetrators. And this is quite independent from what happens in the criminal investigation. Even if the police or the prosecutors may decide that there is no case to prosecute, it does not mean that we cannot launch a civil suit. I hold instructions as we speak to take it to the fullest extent permissible by the law. But we don't want to run this through the media. I'm not in the business of running my cases through the media. But what I do is to speak on behalf of my clients to make sure that I shield them from fielding unnecessary media inquiries, because they might just get emotional, as all human beings do, and say the wrong things and compromise their case.
Right.
We are all about the rule of law.
Just on that, and I'm not asking you to run this case through the media, but I want to speak about another aspect. We've seen a handful of cases in the last half a decade or so of people charged with criminal injury for racist attacks, verbal and otherwise. Some of them have ended in convictions. Does that make a difference, you think, when we prosecute people for racist behavior? Does that add to an actual societal change, I wonder?
It should, because that is what the rule of law is about. Because if we do not strive for justice that results in convictions and sentencing, people are going to be tempted to take the law into their hands, and we will soon slip into anarchy and a banana republic. And that is something that all patriotic South Africans must stay clear of. It may not be justice in a sense of lots of monies that is received by the victims, but we need a constant reminder to all and sundry that says there are laws in this country, and those laws must be respected by all, regardless of your previous advantages or the previous dispensation that made you believe that it is okay to look down upon others. It's not okay. And I, for one, as a person who's legally trained, as a former activist myself, I will not sit by and allow that. And it does not mean when our people do not have the resources to fight for themselves, their rights must be trampled upon by a handful of people who want to take this country back to the dark days. It doesn't work that way. And I will see to it that it doesn't happen, assisted by those who are like-minded. But while we maintain cool heads and ensuring that the rule of law is respected at all material times. This is despicable. This is detestable. We should not mince our words about it.
Zola Majavu, thank you for your time tonight, sir.